Hello and welcome. I hope you're safe and well. In today's exciting episode, we do the sewing YouTube quiz. It's just a bunch of questions that you answer, and then at the end, I might show you the jackets that I've been working on.
It's perfect. 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 Perfect jacket.
On sewing YouTube, we just make regular clothes for ourselves, but there's also cosplayers, and they make costumes inspired by movies and comics and things like that. And there's also historical costumers, and they make things from the past, or the historically accurate Disney costumes and things like that. So a few years ago they had this Q&A, and you just tagged different CosTubers and you did the 24 questions. So I'm going to do the same. It's changed the questions slightly, so it's for sewing and not historical dress, but it's basically the same. We sew clothes for ourselves and we wear them, so it's basically the same thing. Okay, number 1, what is your channel name? Well, I used to post on Instagram quite a bit, and I've got 3 different Instagram accounts, all of them fashion. One is just designer inspired fashion, one's just jackets, and the other one's like black and white shots, like arty shots of designer fashion. So sensing a theme there. And the jacket one is called Perfect Jacket, because I'm kind of obsessed with just getting the perfect fit on a jacket. And yeah, so I did that, and for a while I posted as I was making a jacket. I used to make about one jacket every 2 months. Like 1 month I'd take to do the jacket in my spare time, and then the next month I'd do the trim, and then I'd wear that one, and then, add that one to the wardrobe and start making a new one. And so there weren't enough photos for me to just post stuff that I made. So I also posted designer inspo, and so that was called Perfect Jacket. And so when I started a YouTube channel, I decided to call it Perfect Jacket because I am trying to make the perfect jacket. You can never be perfect, but you can edge closer and closer to it. So that's the aim, and that's the channel name. Number 2, when did you start and why? Well, the pandemic. Isn't that why everyone started their YouTube channel, basically? Before that, I didn't really look at YouTube. Like, I was in grad school, so occasionally I had to watch a lecture online, and I kind of thought that's what YouTube was for. Or I knew there were like animal videos and things, but bad things. YouTube had quite the reputation originally, but it didn't occur to me that there were other things. And then I don't know how, but I found beading YouTube, and it's basically, how I'm not in any of my videos and occasionally you just see my hands. Well, that's what beading YouTube is like, because we just care about the work. We don't sit in front of the camera. And so that's what I was like, I can do that, because I had, during the pandemic, I had COVID, which turned into long COVID, and it just felt like long COVID was never going to leave me. So, I don't know, it just sort of felt like something to do, I guess. And, because normally with my free time, I like to read, but because of one of the things long COVID does is just sort of attacks your systems randomly. So I was vision impaired for quite a few months, and I was like, what can I do? So, I just felt sorry for myself, basically. And I decided to start making jackets again, and because I put them on hold a bit, because, and I started making them again, and the rest is history. I've got slightly better at filming and recording and editing, which is good. Number 3, what is your favourite thing about sewing YouTube? People always say community, and I guess it's good. You feel useful if someone has a problem with a pattern and it's one you've done, and they're like, can you please explain step 8 of this pattern to me? It does not make sense, and you can sort of explain it and help them, so that's good. And there are times where you get loads more toxic comments than other times. And other YouTubers they're like, wow, the toxic comments are really bad at the moment. And it makes you feel better because you're like, ugh, like I'm not happy that everyone's getting targeted, but it just makes you feel less like a target. What genre do you work in? Well, with historical costuming, that sort of matters because some people focus on, the early 18th century or the mid so-and-so. But with when you're sewing for yourself just for everyday clothes, I obviously like French style jackets, the open front Chanel style jackets, and vintage dresses. I like them too. And yeah, I just like making what I like, really. I don't have any hard and fast rules, just what I feel like making and what I have time to make. Question 5 is, how many garments do you make in a year typically? So most historical costumes, there's like the course, there's the undergarments, there's the corsets, then there's the petticoats, then there's the underskirt, there's the skirt, there's the overskirt, there's the day bodice, and there's the evening bodice that turns it sort of into a ball gown. And then you've got the purse, the gloves, the hairpiece, the hat or like thing in the hair, as well as styling the actual fake hair that you put on as well, because women back in the day wore big hairstyles, so they have these whole ensembles that they have to work on. So yeah, some of them only do like 3 or 4 really big ones a year, and others sort of do one project per month. But I decided this year that I'll make or finish, try to 9 things each month, which sounds like a lot, but like I've got a jacket that all I have to do is sew the sleeves on and then it's ready to bead, so that counts as one. So it sounds like a lot, but it's not really. And yeah, so it depends. But then I sometimes, if I've got a lot of work on and like working on your career, I'm not at that point in my life anymore, but there were times where I just didn't do any sewing for a few years, or just a little bit, or just did repairs on, my handmade wardrobe and didn't make anything new for a while. So it just sort of goes in, it ebbs and flows. Okay, question 6. What are your favourite shops? Well, I guess it depends what country you're in, but like if you're visiting India or something, then just go to the markets and just look around like the whole labyrinth, and you'll come across some thread stores, some sequin stores, some with trim, and it's just so much fun. But also I like vintage stores. They often have trims and trinkets and like little boxes of vintage patterns and things like that. I love going through things like that. But just regular fabric stores, then I mostly make tweed jackets. So for tweeds, you can't really go wrong with Linton Tweeds in the UK. And it's an online store and they deliver pretty much wherever. And they're not cheap, but they're really good quality and extremely reasonable price for what you get. If you're visiting Paris, then there's a few stores. Just look up tweed or look up Chanel tweeds and you'll see them all. But you can't buy online. They just they don't like the English speaking people, which is fair enough. This tweed here I bought from Etsy, but I don't recommend it. It literally took 4 months for this tweed to arrive, and the people at Etsy said, what can you do? But luckily I bought a couple of different tweeds, and luckily they eventually turned up, but I haven't ever used Etsy again after that. So yeah. Oh, with lint and tweed, what they do is they only make sometimes 50 meters of a tweed, or 20 meters, or 10. So they're really, really limited editions, and they hardly ever remake a design. So, and I think they release new tweeds, like 4 or 5 new tweeds on Tuesdays and Fridays, I think, twice a week anyway. I tend to just check, and every now and again they go through a phase where I just don't like the colours they're using. I just don't like it. But I mean, other people obviously do. And so, yeah, if nothing sort of speaks to you, then you just go back like once a month or so, and you might find something you really like. But the other one is Mood Fabrics, and that's where I get my I get really reasonable price, good quality silk from there, because pretty much if you want to be a fashion designer in America, then you work out of New York or LA, but mostly New York. And so then every collection has to have a few blazers and jackets in it. So everyone needs silk for the lining. So it's really good quality and it's really reasonable price. It's like $33 per yard for silk, which is it's really good quality silk. So I think that's amazing. It's just plain. It's much more expensive. It's like 180 to over 200 per yard for the Italian silks with the designs on them, the printed ones. But the plain ones are really reasonable. So yeah, I tend to just buy like 10 yards at a time or something. And they also have tweeds. So they have some nice tweeds. They're not the best tweeds in the world, but the tweeds that they have, and it's not the biggest variety, but the tweeds they have are quite good, and they're very reasonably priced for what you get. If you're in New York, like in person, just when you're like in the fashion district, literally, then Google European designer stores, and the algorithm will tell you where all the shops are that don't have the websites, because with European designer fabrics, they're extremely expensive. So often they only buy a few meters, a few yards of it, and it's not really worth, if something costs $400 per yard, it's not really worth listing, and you only have like 5 or 10 yards of it. It's not really worth listing, because something that expensive, you want to feel it, and you want to feel the quality, and it, like the ones that they have are totally worth the price. They're totally worth it, but you really need to see them in person so that you know that. So that's why a lot of those stores don't bother with websites. And as you can see with this lovely layer cake dress, I also buy a lot of cotton. I love natural fibres, so I sometimes buy linen. It's a bit, I hate ironing, so I prefer cotton. I just sort of look around the local stores, and when something's on sale, if I like it and it's still there, then I buy it. But I currently live in Asia, and they don't deliver outside Asia, and most of you live in America, so that's not very useful, especially since all the Joanne stores recently shut down. But there are still all the quilting stores, and they have gorgeous fabrics. And yeah, I love cottons and quilting cottons. They just have the best designs on them, because I love a floral. A vintage look floral is my weak spot. So I particularly love quilting cottons. But I also have quite a few vintage dresses that I've made that I don't wear. So if, because I'm making jackets out of quilting cottons at the moment. So if I run out of fabric, I can just start pulling apart, other things that I've made and reuse them to make something new, if I feel the desperate need. I've still got a couple of storage boxes of tweeds and non-tweed jacket fabrics, laces, velvets, things like that. So I've got loads of things that I just pick up something here and there. I like the idea of finding fabrics in thrift stores, but you have to have good thrift stores to do that. So yeah, But other people have fabrics that they don't like as well. So there's a lot of places where you can do, I think there's something called ThreadUp, and it's it's like an app that you use to organize your fabric stash, but they also have a community section, and you can like swap patterns and swap other things. So I think, yeah, there's lots of ways you can get fabric if you don't have the cash to actually get fabric. Question 7 is, do you buy patterns or do you self-draft? This is sort of more for historical, when you're making historical clothing, because commercial patterns are a relatively new thing. They've only been around for a century max. And before that, there were books, and you sort of did like a grid system, like this is what it should look like, make it in your size. Once you've got these measurements, this is what you sort of have to go, have at it. And so it's sort of like self-drafting with a little bit of guidance. So yeah, I definitely love, like most sewing people, I love buying patterns. There's just so much potential in each one. And yeah, so I've got loads of the commercial patterns, and you can also download free patterns. Like Mood Fabrics has this section called Society, spelled SEW, and it's free patterns. You just have to give them your email address and they like email you promo stuff. But yeah, and then you can download PDFs. I'm not a fan of downloading PDF patterns because then you have to print them all out and stick them together. I would just rather have, like, go to the store, pay a few dollars, get an actual pattern and then trace out the parts that I need. So that's what I do. And yeah, I tend to make it and then like make a mock-up of the commercial pattern, because my body's like all not standard shape. So then I sort of tweak it to fit me. So those are the fitting tweaks. And then after that, I like tweak the sleeve to make it shorter or longer, tweak the body to make it, more cropped, tweak the neckline to make it sit back off my neck a little bit, or, yeah. So I do lots of little tweaks, but I wouldn't say anything is completely self-drafted. Well, now when I make a dress, the only part of the pattern I use is the bodice. Like I'll find a top that I like, or a vintage top, or the bodice of a vintage dress or a normal dress, and I'll do that. I'll use that. And then for the skirt, I just do huge bits of fabric and pleat them down, because that's the style of dress that I like. So that's kind of not exactly using a pattern. Okay, question 8. What sort of methods do you use? So this is related to sewing for yourself. Do you use fast fashion methods like iron-on interfacing and things like that? No, I tend to go for the sewing methods that were used in the 1930s. So pretty much hand sew, or the fancy way of saying is that I do couture methods. So what it means is basically the only bit of a garment that you sew with you use a vintage sewing machine and the only bit that you use the machine for is the long seams, and then everything else is done by hand. So all the seam allowance is hand stitched back, and yeah, all the details are hand finished. So I just want to wear the same things for, I've got jackets that I made 15 years ago and I still wear that. Like, they're still very much part of my wardrobe. So it depends what you want. If you want to sort of go with the fashion seasons and you'd want something to last, like clothes, industrial and commercially made clothes are made to last for a maximum of 6 wears. Like, most of them are returned before they're worn, and a lot of them are only worn a couple of times. I mean, it depends what you want. I just don't think that type of fashion, that type of turnaround is sustainable. So I'd rather put in a little bit more time and effort. And also, I hate the rush and I hate the noise. So I just like doing things by hand, and then you have it for the rest of your life pretty much. So that's the kind of sewing that I want to do and the kind of work I want to produce. So yeah, my methods are old-fashioned and time-consuming, but they work for me. Question 9 is about historical accuracy. I don't know whether that's relating to methods, because some people, well, obviously, there weren't modern sewing machines in the old days, so everything was done by hand. I think you should not everyone has bucket loads of time. So, if you make the conscious choice to work less, then you have to buy less and you have to be less of a consumer. So, it's just about your priorities. If you can afford to have time to do things by hand, that's awesome, but that's not for everyone. So I don't think you should be snobbish about whether you use the sewing machine on everything. And yeah, I think just do what suits your lifestyle. Next question is number 10. Do you thrift for fabrics? I would love to. I just have to find some really good thrift stores. But I can't remember who it was. Someone said if you do buy, if you find a really beautiful wool that looks nice, like a blanket, and you want to turn it into a jacket or a coat, if you have a big freezer, just put it in the freezer, and that's how you kill moths. So unless you know how to check everything, I'd be really careful about introducing a woolen fabric, some fabric that looks a little bit not well treated into your fabric stash. So that's my only qualm. But yeah, and someone said that you can just, if you really, you just fall in love with a blanket and it looks like it's seen better days, but the fabric's fine, but it just hasn't been stored correctly, then take it home, wash it properly. And then I think moths can survive being washed. So yeah, then once it's dry, you can just put it in the freezer or do the freezer thing first. But if you put it in the freezer for 2 weeks, then it kills the whole cycle of moths, even the eggs and things like that. So yeah, that sort of put me off ever buying thrifted clothing. I was like, well, that's way too much effort. I'll just buy something from a store. But I guess it sort of seems like I buy a lot, but a lot of the fabrics you see me using on my channel, I've had for 5-10 years. So, because, yeah, I tend to sort of just save up. And then when I have enough money, I'm like, I'm going to buy, 3 or 4 different tweeds or whatever. So, yeah, I guess everyone has their own way of being a consumer, and that's mine. Question 11 is, what are your favourite fabrics? Well, all the natural ones. I like quilting cottons because the prints are just so adorable. And I like, so cotton for dresses and tops. And then for jackets, I like tweeds. And I like silk for the lining. And also I use netting instead of horsehair. I don't use the English method of making jackets. I use the Parisian method. And just because I have a much smaller frame, so it's more suited to me and also to my beading, the style of work that I do. So yeah, and also I love natural fiber fabrics, but for my thread, I always use poly thread because it's stronger and it lasts longer. So the general rule is if you want something to go into a museum or you want to wear it for the rest of your life, then you have to use poly. We don't have to, you can do whatever you want, but yeah, use poly thread and you won't constantly have to allocate vast amounts of resources or time to doing upkeep and repairs. So for that reason, I use poly thread. But everything else, if I can use natural, I do. And I sort of have the same logic for the embellishments. Like I don't use feathers because after a while they sort of decompose, which is what feathers are supposed to do. But I want my jackets to last at least 2 or 3 decades. For weight, so that they don't, gravity doesn't, be too terrible on them, I tend to mix some plastic beads, which are lighter, in with the beautiful, beautiful heavy glass beads. So yeah, I mean, if you were just making something for one wear or something, like a bridal item or something like that, then yeah, I'd go for the really heavy glass beads because they look beautiful. They capture the light really, really well, and the weight of them makes them sit on your body really well, and they flow beautifully when you're dancing or whatever. So I do love the look of them, but because I tend to wear my jackets as everyday items of clothing, they have to be more rigorous. I don't want to constantly be doing repairs, and I don't want them to be as delicate as a haute couture piece. I want them to look beautiful, but I want them to be practical. So that's why I mix. I don't use wood beads because like when you're going in and out of Australia, for example, like when you're coming into Australia, they're really obsessive about like any dirt things, any wooden, anything made of wood. So you have to get them put through this machine and you have to pay for it to be done. So it's just easier to not use wood beads if you're going to countries that have concerns like that. Completely legitimate concerns, but you do have to sort of factor it into your wardrobe if you're going to go to and fro. So yeah, I tend to stick to plastic beads, glass beads, and some metal beads. But you have to be careful with metals, especially when you're going with vintage beads, because, standards weren't always as, not that they're particularly robust now, but yeah, some of the things that they used to be able to put in ingredients, you've just got to be quite careful. Question 12. Do you ever revamp or recycle your makes? Yes, I do. I still have loads of fabrics that I haven't got to yet, so I mostly work on new fabrics, but I do, the jackets that I make are so fitted. And so, like, with a fitted jacket, each piece is actually quite tiny, each pattern piece. So I think it would be difficult to pull them apart and make something new from it. But I put so much effort into each jacket. But, like, every 5 years, I do sort of get each jacket out and sort of look at it and decide if I still like the trim or still like the embellishment. And then if, sometimes I just take it off and redo it as something else. So, I mean, that's kind of zhuzhing it up a little bit and upcycling it. But if I made more less unique pieces, and like these dresses are absolutely adorable, but at some point I might decide that I want to shorten them, or I might decide to take the bodice off and make a different bodice. So I'm absolutely fine about doing all those sorts of things, but I haven't got around to it for most of them yet. But yeah, I like, as an option, I think it's a really good one, because your needs change, your sense of style changes as well. So I think it's perfectly fine to keep, like, the good thing about being able to sew is that you can just change stuff. If you don't like it, you can change it. I think that's awesome. Question 13 is history bounding. So when you make historical clothing, it's like, do you wear your Victorian blouse with jeans and just, a vest over them or something like that? So do you mix, our version of this question would be, when you make a vintage dress, do you wear modern day clothes with it, or do you go out in only things that, if it's a 1953 dress, do you wear only things that someone would have worn in 1953? I just mix everything up. Like this jacket here looks so much like an actual vintage Chanel jacket, and I just wear it with t-shirt, jeans, and like combat boots or heels, designer heels, or just and like a Chanel bag, or most of my like I have a couple of vintage, a couple of designer handbags, just like one Valentino one Chanel one, and I bought it like a long time ago, well before we had to boycott. But yeah, so I just sort of, when you're in the entertainment industry, you have to sort of look bland, but like you're well off enough to work on a multi-million-dollar project. So yeah, I have one black Chanel tweed jacket and plus all my own ones. So I just sort of, mix vintage or really classic pieces with just standard, jeans and a t-shirt, and that sort of gets me through. With the dresses, I tend to just wear like boots and dresses, and I look like I get dressed from walking into a vintage clothing store or like opening a dress-up box. So I'm not sure you should try and replicate my sense of style, but it works for me. Question 14 and 15 are, what's the worst part of sewing? What's the best part of sewing? Well, the worst part of having a sewing YouTube is the toxic comments. The worst part of sewing is unpicking, I guess, when you accidentally do something wrong. Like, I don't actually use the sewing machine that much, and I rarely do anything wrong with the sewing machine because I don't want to unpick. So I just think about what I'm going to do before I use the machine, and most of the time I never have to unpick anything. But yeah, on the rare occasions where I do have to unpick, because I tend to use, at the moment I'm using cotton fabrics, which are pretty reasonably priced, but when you're using a tweed, which is just, it's unique, like you can't replace it. They haven't made any more of it. So, and it cost a lot. So yeah, that's painful. Favorite thing, probably hand sewing and beading. Just the really silent, quiet work where you get to think and create something beautiful and unique. I like that. Question 17 is about entertainment. I never used to watch things or listen to things when I was making my jackets. It's only the past couple of years that I've started like listening to podcasts or audiobooks or things on YouTube. So yeah, sometimes, but I still really, really like silence and just being alone with my thoughts. I think that's one of the reasons. Like if I had a garden, I would spend a larger chunk of I would, instead of beading, I would do gardening. And when you're in the garden, you're just sort of silent, and that's the sort of hobbies that I like. So I do sometimes watch things though, movies and things as well. How much time do you spend on sewing? More than, I spend a lot less time on reading than I would like at the moment. But, I like being able to, when you sew, you come up with loads of ideas, and it's frustrating not making them all. So when you put more time into sewing, you get to make more of your ideas, like you get to see them into fruition, which I like. So I am spending a bit more time than I would like on sewing at the moment and beading at the moment, but I'm getting to actually make some of the designs, really complicated designs. So yeah, so it's frustrating that I'm using up so much time sewing, but on the other hand, it is so good realizing so many of the designs. So that part is awesome. and photos of your work. Well, this whole video is basically just footage and photos of things that I've made. Okay, last few questions. Do you prefer to sew for summer or winter? I think autumn and spring. I don't like it when it's too hot, and I don't like it when it's too cold. I like it when it's just right. And then 20, what's your favorite color? Green. Of course it's green. Green's awesome. 21, what is your next project? I have to get started on my Make 9, seriously. So I've been doing a lot of homework and preparation for those jackets. And 22, what is your dream make? Loads of things. Anything that would improve my technique, like my sewing techniques and my beading techniques. Just whenever I see something like with Lesage, this embroidery house in Paris, whenever I see something that they've done that is just exquisite, I'm just like, ooh, like I don't want to copy it, but I just want to think about how I could incorporate some of those techniques or some of those design ideas into something that I could make that would be wearable in my everyday life. So yeah, not something impractical that someone wears to a red carpet, but like how could I use those techniques sort of thing. And do you have other hobbies? Yes, I love gardening, baking and reading. But I've been doing a lot of sewing and beading lately. And 24 is other channels. So this is where you like dob in other channels and make them do the Q&A thing. I think other people are too busy. But there are loads of awesome YouTube channels that you should check out. So yeah. And do this sewing Q&A if you feel like it. Put a list of the questions a copy of the questions in the description box below, if I remember. Otherwise, you can just screenshot one of the images when it's up. And this is Lesage, the embroidery house that I was telling you about. The work is just so amazing. So each of the little layers of fabric in the flower is cut out by hand, and then they've got beads in between them so that they all sit out perfectly. It's just so gorgeous. So yeah, that's probably one of the reasons why I started making fabric flower jackets, because I was just like, oh, I need to do something just as magical. Anyway, I have got lots of beading ideas that I want to do and want to turn into actual garments. So I will do that. And I've still got loads of planning to do for my Make 9 jackets. And then I just said goodbye, and then I was like, oh, wait a second, I have to show you what I've been doing with the beading. But I ended up splitting this video into two. Originally, I was going to put all the little bits of the jackets that I'd been working on, and then at the end show you each of the jackets. But yeah, I ended up putting that video out on Thursday. And this one is me just telling you, So in the last video, this second jacket here with the indigo flowers, I ended up doing the first two lots of beads on the beading. So I did this sort of navy dark bluish color. And then after I did those ones, I did green. It looks very bright in the footage, I think, but it's sort of more of I think if you saw them by themselves, you would call it a dark green, but it is a bright dark green. So I ended up doing those two, but they're both opaque and your eye just sort of sits on them, it doesn't dance around them. And I guess I'm used to using pearls, which have a beautiful luster, or transparent glass beads, which also they capture the light really beautifully. So I decided that, then I worked on another jacket, but and then I put that video out. But now I've decided that I am going to add the third lot of beads, even though I still haven't found the little leaves I wanted to put on the end. I still like these transparent beads over the top. So what I've done is, the thing is with the bottom, you could just put the transparent green ones over the top and it works really well. Like it the play of the light is exactly what I wanted. So I like it at the bottom, but I don't know what I'm going to do about the beads that go up the center front and around the neckline, because what I like about this is the way the transparent ones sit over the other opaque beads, and you can't really do that when they're going up, like vertical. And around the neckline, I suppose there is a tiny little ring right at the neckline that I can work on, but yeah, I don't know. So I've left that one for the moment because I can do the cuffs of the sleeves, and I think with the bits over the shoulders, if I just do a light line on either side and then have some dotted in the middle, I think that will work on the shoulders. So I'll do those bits next, and depending on how the shoulder bits work, whether it's effective way to bead it, then I'll do the neckline and the center fronts based on that information. So yeah, I've got enough beads to finish it, as long as I put them where they can be seen well enough that the balance is correct. So it's tricky. I have to think about it a bit more before I do it. So next I'm doing a little bit more homework for my Make 9 jackets. One of them is a cottage garden. So a while ago, I came up with the idea of doing this flower, and it's 6 plastic small beads that are the same size as the seed bead, but they're rounder and lighter, with 6 cream or white ones on the outside and then 1 in the middle. So I was trying to figure out, because I also want to do a snowdrop jacket, snowdrop flowers. So I was just seeing what they look like on this green felt, because yeah, and this is what it looks like with the pale green in the center. And I was like, it looks a little bit too much like a cartoon flower. So then I tried another one, and I did a darker green, and they both look cartoonish in my opinion. I do have darker green beads and transparent. I think the transparent one might look better, but I think also the background being that cartoonish grass green is not helping either. So then I did one as like a daisy with, white petals around the edge and that sort of mustard color in the middle. And I think that one looks good. And I've used green thread, so you can't actually see the thread when it's on a green base. So I think that's a good idea. I'll use that information. So it's not completely useless. I don't like the ones with the green centers. You could do a green ring of 6 petals, and then a white center or something. But anyway, then I decided that I was going to try a different one. So I follow this this beading person on Instagram, and they make ties and handbags and things like that. And they've recently started making ones with flowers on them, which are interesting. I've got these sort of flower centers, so I'm not going to do beads as the flower centers because I think that looks too much all beads. But I thought it might be interesting to do petals, but I don't know, I didn't like the long strings of beads. I think part of it is that I was using green thread still, so I think if I swapped it and used pale thread, it might have been better. But anyway, I just tuck them in and stitch them down so they sort of look like petals. So then the center bit of the flower, that plastic thing, it's got 6 sort of fronds sticking out. So I was like, I'll do 3 petals, then I'll do another 3 petals, and then I'll do another 3, and then another 3, sort of each. And there's sort of each time you put more petals underneath, it sort of sits up the whole thing. But as I said, I think using dark green thread on a light bead doesn't work. So I sort of abandoned that one. I don't like that one either. And then I happen to have a few of those leftovers from, my cactus flower jacket. I've got some of those, and this flower center that I just used on the previous exercise experiment, I'm going to use those with the leftover cactus flower jacket, cactus flower sequins to do another small bolero jacket. So I just thought, while I'm doing all these little experiments, I might just do one and see if it looks good, because I like the flowers the way that I did all those bits together on the cactus flower jacket. But with this one, what I did is, so you've got the flat big sequins, then another big sequins, but it's folded up, and then you've got this weird flower center thing, then a rondelle in gold, and then a tiny little, anchoring it is a tiny little round 4mm bead. And I quite like that one. I think that would look good if you had like a bolero jacket that's green and or some color, and you did all those flowers dotted over it, and then you did big green sequins as like two leaves on either side. I think that would be interesting. And then I still had some thread left. So I was like, okay, I'll experiment with something else as well. So this is the Lesage, and you've just seen this video, but one of my make nines is I'm going to make a fabric flower jacket, but also I have the cottage garden flower one. And so, yeah, I just want to make some different flowers, because I think I love having just all fabric flower jacket. Like I've got the yellow one, but I think if I mix some sequin flowers in there as well, it would look more like that Lesage for Chanel Bolero. So and I've got some big sequins. So what I do is you just like big sequins with the French, like the, instead of the dot being in the center, it's on one side. And then so you get 6, I think I've got 6 big ones that are flat and 6 big ones that are folded in half. And I put them down. So I did 3, and then I went around and I did another 3 on top. So it gives it a sort of clustered, like closed, smushed in feeling to it that's more like a flower. It looks sort of like maybe an old-fashioned rose or something. I like it. I think, yeah. And I've got loads of different colours. So I think I'll save the gold ones for when I redo the Gucci green jacket. But all the rest, I think they would be interesting. So, yeah, I like that idea. I might finesse it a little bit. Oh, this is just more... I've got this big jar full of seed beads and tiny little 4mm plastic beads, and they're all in different colors. So if I group them into different colors, these are the ones that I could use them on, like the white ones I think I'm going to use on my Very Hungry Caterpillar jacket, and also the green ones. If you put a big red one on one end, then it would look like a Very Hungry Caterpillar, so I might hang them down, but I don't want them to look like dead caterpillars, so we'll see. And these silver spikes, they sort of look like bullets. So I was going to make this jacket a long time ago. I've been meaning to make it for a long time, and the hinge jacket, and it was going to have 355 of those silver bullet type beads hanging down off it. But I don't know, as I kind of think you should celebrate someone's life, not the bad things that happen to them. So I'm rethinking what I should do with that jacket. Or maybe I'll make 2 small bolero jackets, and one can have like red beads dripping down and the silver beads in it, the silver bullet looking beads on, and the other one can have like flowers, like what a life would have been and what it wasn't. So I might do that. Anyway, so I didn't end up working on that one. So then I decided to do some beading on this one. And for the longest time, I wasn't really sure how I would bead this one. I was originally going to do beaded trim on it. And then I was like, I'll do embellishment all over it. But I don't have enough of these faceted oval beads in gold, sort of a pale pink and white. So I mixed them together, and I still don't think there's enough to do embellishment all over the jacket. But then I was like, actually, so that's why it hadn't been done till now. And then I've just been doing all these beads where I hang them down. So I was like, actually, I could hang them down, and it's just around the edges, so there might be enough for that. So that's what I've been doing. There's 6 seed beads, and then the oval faceted one, and then an anchor bead on the end. I've used the glass bead on the end, and so it goes 6 7 6 7 6 7, so they're slightly different. And I know on most of my jackets I hang them down off the bottom of the jacket, but because this one is tweed, when you make a tweed jacket, the inside you turn up about just over an inch or 2 of tweed on the inside, and then you hang down your silk over that. So I sort of had to make it start here so that all my threads on the inside would be under the silk part, if you get what I mean. So yeah, and I've already put the lining in this one, so doing the neckline is going to be interesting, but I stopped before I was at the neckline just because I've run out of time, but also because I'm going to do the shoulders, the beading over the shoulders first before I do the neckline. And also, yeah, the cuffs are going to they're not going to hang down below the cuff line either, because I just find it really annoying when there's things like when you're trying to write or type and there's stuff jingling and jangling. So yes, that's what I'm going to do. I think this is just the first layer, and once I've done the first layer, I think it's probably not going to be heavy enough, so I'll probably do a second layer, even if I don't have enough of the oval faceted ones. I'll just do the second layer with more of using up all the seed beads, so there'll be more in the rows, but it'll be essentially the same. So yes, that's what I have been doing. So that is it for this episode. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you found some inspiration, or if sewing and beading inspiration is what you were looking for. I will put these photo of these questions in the community post section, so you can look there if you don't want to if you want to see the questions and you want to do it but you don't want to watch the video again, just go to the community posts and you can just screenshot it from there. So yeah, thanks again for watching, and happy sewing and beading. I really do like that pale pink flower. I think it's really cute.